All right. So I think today we're going to talk a little bit about why we started SysGit as a company. So Steve, why don't you start us off?
Yeah. I mean, it really comes down to thinking about agile, thinking about how to apply agile to hardware development and actually acquisitions as well. And looking what the software world has been able to do for the last 20 years. So, there's all the cultural part of agile, which is the meeting, stand up, the groom backlog, the ask your customer what do they actually want until you actually find out the truth. But there's also this tactical implementation, right? That I think was really only enabled by Git as a piece of technology back when Linus Torvalds invented it almost 20 years ago at this point, where really he just wanted Linux contributors to work on the same piece of code at the same time and resolve the differences gracefully. And we keep thinking about how are you managing the system level models, the work you actually have to do the complex engineering of the defense industrial base. And the current state of the art is very check in, check out. It's very don't touch this. I'm working on it. But I remember you went to a series of conferences in 2023 and just started to see SysML v2, the textual notation language. And that was super exciting for you. And it was great. And it was really cool to dig into that a bit and realize that, well, hold on, there's something here. If we were to shift the paradigm of the software tool we're building to actually use the same 20 years of software engineering and apply it directly to hardware, we could not only deliver capability faster, we could almost get to bi-weekly deliverables at the business level of actually proving we're building the right thing and really tighten that decade-long time capability to something much closer to what we saw in our past world with SpaceX that was so vertically integrated. So I kind of went a little more down a rabbit hole there, but pass it back to you. And
yeah,
I read it a little bit.
Yeah, I think you touched on a lot of the key points there. Really, the power of the textual notation and framing it in a way of using it the way that you would write software, write code. You can store the textual notation. It's a text, right? And it comes in a text document. You can open it and edit it with something as simple as Notepad or Vim or another text editing tool like that. It's really just a very simple representation of your models, but because it's stored in a text format, that makes it ideal for storing it, managing it, and version controlling it in a tool like Git. With the invention of Git and with widespread increasing adoption of it, you see other tools like GitHub and GitLab and other DevOps, CI/CD focused tools evolve around that, where you really build all of the useful workflows on top of that code. And we see a connection with what we're doing in SysGit and what we're doing with storing SysML v2 to layer on top of all of those workflows and DevOps and agile approaches to building software. Now you can take the same approach and use it in SysGit with building hardware. And again, it all really relies on SysML v2 as that core technology of how you define and model your systems. SysML v2 has a lot of great elements and affordances for modeling all sorts of information. One of the most important ones that we think, starting off on a system, starting off in the program, is really modeling out your requirements and how they're going to trace across your entire system design and evolution. That's a core part of the system engineering V model, if you're familiar with that. And it's great that SysML v2 provides that because, previously you'd have a traditional requirements management tool. Maybe you just want to use something as simple as Excel. It's what a lot of engineering teams will reach for. But with the power to model that SysML v2, you can have it stored in text. You can have version control. You can trace it across the entire history of the development. There's just a lot of really interesting tools and affordances for working with not only requirements, but directly integrating those requirements into your system models and system design and building DevOps workflows on top of that. So I think that's kind of what really attracted us to SysML v2.
I think my favorite part about SysML v2 is that we make it up. It's the last 5 years of the major prime contractors and researchers put a lot of work into this based on the last 20 years of MBSE.
Right.
Like, it's not just something we're just doing off on our own. We're taking something that is industry has defined and we're building on top of that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Using my big college word 3, SysML v2 has a predefined ontology, which is a way to think about and reason and describe systems. And like you pointed out, that's really all of the kind of the mind share of the engineering community and the model-based systems engineering community has established core defining ways of how you describe requirements, how you describe attributes and requirements, how you describe parts, how you describe how parts interconnect together. And it just provides a standardized way of reasoning and thinking about these systems. So yeah, I agree. The SysML v2 ontology is great. And it's wonderful to be able to, if you're a prime contractor working with a vendor and you deliver them a SysML v2 model, if they have some comments or questions about what's meant by a certain phrase or certain word you have, there's this great little dense 500-page specification that you can just point them to. They can look at that and understand what everything means.
Yeah, it's put a lot of work into that, and it's also nice from a product development perspective because we're not really deviating from the specification, right? You're following this so you can build they were building a system modeling authoring tool and requirements management tool, right? That's that middle layer of what we're building. But because of that and our approach to treat hardware as code, we can then enable something different, even at the acquisitions level, right? I think one thing we've been really pushing on and we've been showing to DoD leaders, getting good feedback on, is going from that 18-month design review cycle of everyone pile in and make a bunch of slides to acknowledging the system model is a business artifact, much as it is an engineering artifact, right? You're not necessarily making system models or management requirements for fun. That's just something you're doing to prove to your colleagues you're doing your work. So if we can then instead of issuing changes to that model in an 18-month time frame, we do it every 2 weeks. Because again, we're using agile software approaches. We can then get to a world where maybe the program offices are billing billed every 2 weeks instead, and vendors being paid every 2 weeks, right? And then they can make decisions about what's best for their program in a truly agile approach, as opposed to the modelers being kind of off to the side doing something else. I think that's one of the things that's like truly enabled by this architecture that you developed to build this.